Hello and welcome to the Success Showcase. I'm your host, Eric Lopkin with the Modern Observer Group. And with me, as always, is Chip Janiszewski from the Happiness and Success GPS. Chip, how you doing today?
Doing great. How about you, Eric?
Fantastic. Summer is underway. The heat is here, and as many problems as that may cause, at least you don't have to shovel heat.
Well, as I say, it's all BS. It beats snow.
Absolutely.
There you go. So,
all right. Well, today we've got a fantastic guest, Stephen King Jr. He's doing so much with the community, with business. So let's get right into it. Welcome, Stephen.
Hey, what's going on, fellas? Eric, Chip, thanks for having me.
So good to have you here.
So, Steve, why don't you tell the audience a little bit about yourself?
Okay. All right. What's up, everybody? So, Stephen King Jr. No, I am not the author. I actually spell my name with a V. Originally from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, born and raised. I am the oldest of 7. So I have 5 sisters and 1 brother. They're all still in the Philadelphia area. Married. Let's see now. How long has it been? It has been 5 years. Let's make sure we delete that part. So 5 years and 2 children. Roman is 10. Sophia is 15. So I'll let you guys marinate on that and figure that out. So yeah, so we got together and it's been awesome. Living in South Windsor, Connecticut right now, and so hey, every day is something new, and we're excited about that. So that's the short history, but we can get more in depth if you like in terms of background. Graduated from Penn State. People are always it's funny. People are always kind of like impressed by that, and it's interesting because when I went to high school, you know, I had Temple around me, University of Penn, so on and so forth, and I chose Penn State primarily. And people don't believe this, but because my favorite color is blue. I only applied to one school. I only applied to Penn State, and I really wanted to go there. I mean, I had no idea what a Nittany Lion was or anything like that. And fortunately, I was blessed. Spent 2 years at their Altoona campus, which was really a wake-up call. I mean, there's nobody in Altoona, well, at least not at that time. And then my junior year transferred over to State College. Now they call it University City. And graduated from there in 95. My gosh. And I had a job with J.C. Penney Company. And I remember being so excited about getting a job at that time because everybody else that I knew, they were like still staying in school. And I was like, I got to get up out of here. But, you know, they couldn't find jobs or whatever. So I had a game plan. I said, well, you know, I've been working since I'm 13 years old. I said, you know, if I get a job just as working in the shoe department, maybe they'll put me in their internship class. And then I could be a management trainee. And I must have beat up that store manager every day saying, I'm about to graduate. Can I get into the management trainee program and all that type of stuff? And eventually I was blessed and he let me in and he said, congratulations. I said, oh, awesome. So I go to my buddies. I joined a fraternity and I'm like, yo, telling my fraternity brothers, I got a job, man, with J.C. Penney's. I'm about to be a management trainee. And it's like, oh, for real? They said, yeah, where you going? I was like, they said my first job is going to be in Martinsburg, West Virginia. I swear you could have heard a record skip. They said, West Virginia? They said, they putting you in West Virginia? You sure? And I was like, yeah, why? What's wrong with West Virginia? You know, like I said, man, I was just happy. I was like, man, you know. And they're like, I don't know if there's too many black folk out there, Steve. And I was like, man, it's a job. I'm excited. I think at that time, maybe $25,000 a year. I was like, man. Went out there, great experience. I grew up really quick out there. I remember they used to call me Mr. Philadelphia just because of West Virginia has the most, you know, quote unquote, southern states, you know, do things a little slower, you know, not that's a bad thing. But I went in there and I was like, you know what, we can, you know, my arrogant behind, we can do 2 things at once. We can kill 2 birds with 1 stone, da 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 da. And the woman was like, you know, older. She was probably old enough to be my grandmother, older white woman. She said to me, calm down, Mr. Philadelphia. We do things a little bit different here. You're going to have to learn. Congratulations from Penn State, but you still have some learning to do. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Do you see this title? It says management trainee. Man, you talk about School of Hard Knocks. I learned real quick. And that's where, I learned, you take care of the people that take care of your customers, and they'll take care of you. That was one of the things that I learned from her. And, and then even at JCPenney, I forgot, I had this guy he ran the shoe department. I forget his name, but he was an old Jewish guy. And one of the first things he said, Steven, this is your first time having some money in your pocket. And I was like, yes, sir. And he said, okay, let me tell you about this thing called a 401k. And I was like, what? So I'm going to put my money somewhere else and I'm going to have less in my pocket? And he said, the more you have, put it away now, you're not going to miss it. That was another valuable lesson, putting the money away. So that was J.C. Penney's. And next thing I know, fast forward from Martinsburg, West Virginia to Canandaigua, New York, up near the Finger Lakes. And that was an experience. Nothing but water up there. And then they said, yeah, we're going to send you to Connecticut. And I was like, all right, well, that's closer to Philly. Okay. Send me to Connecticut. They sent me to Enfield, Connecticut. And at that time, the Enfield Mall was buzzing. It was hopping. It was Macy's up there. We were one of the anchor stores. And I called one of my fraternity brothers because I didn't know anybody in Connecticut. And I was like, yo, his name is Jameson. I was like, yo, Jamie. I said, I'm coming to Connecticut. He was like, congratulations. I said, yeah. He said, where you going to be at? I said, Enfield. He was like, where's that? Jamie was from Waterbury. So he was like, he said, Enfield. And I said, yeah, I think that's near Massachusetts. He was like, man, they got you up there. And I was like, all right, well, I need to find an apartment. I need to find a place to live, And he said, okay, cool. Yeah, why don't I meet you in Hartford somewhere? And, little did I know, I knew nothing about Connecticut. Now it doesn't even mean anything. It's like an hour anyway. But, helped me find a place in Hartford and did my thing. And ironically, I got promoted from Enfield to Waterbury. They had just built the Waterbury Mall and, Brass City, I think. And that was an awesome experience. Was with a Southern manager from Texas. Well, not really Southern, yeah. And he taught me a lot of things. He taught me, Stephen, he loved everything to be clean, spotless. And sometimes my office was not that, right? But he said, look, I'm going to just teach you this little trick. He said, get one of these boxes. And if you ever hear I'm coming around, or if you know a district manager is coming around, just put everything in a box and put it under your desk. Man, that was another gem. It didn't matter how dirty. I just threw everything in a box, threw it under my desk. You would have thought that I had somebody that cleaned that office every day. So, needless to say, I mean, that was every step of the journey was an awesome experience. And then I got blessed and went to Enterprise Rent-A-Car. Learned a lot there. Work hard, play hard. Still young, but learned a lot about customer service there as well, and taking care of people. And I had a manager who taught me at that time. He said, he got a call from a customer. And I think I was a manager at that time, or maybe I was an assistant manager. No, I had to be a manager. And he said to me, Steven, I need you to do me a favor. His name was Jay. And I said, yeah, what's up, Jay? He was like, I need you to take care of this customer. And I'm like, Jay, come on. He said, well, let me explain something to you. Either you're going to take care of the customer, or I'm going to take care of the customer. And if I have to take care of the customer, then I'm going to have to come take care of you. Man, I called that customer so quick. What can I do for you, sir? What do you need? But that was a real lesson in terms of, the things that you think are a big deal, they're not really. Maybe in that moment, but that's when emotions and ego get in the way. But if you take care of people the right way, they're going to come back to you 10 times over, And so I taught the people I managed the same thing. I empowered them to make the decisions, so that even if they made a wrong decision, I never embarrassed them in front of a customer. I would just say, hey, maybe next time you might want to think of this. But it's one of those things where not so much that the customer is always right, but let's take care of the customer every time, so that not only do they believe that they're right, because most times customers know if they're getting over or not, but they'll appreciate the respect that you give them in that moment, and so that was extremely beneficial at that time. And then, somebody heard about me at Enterprise, and then they asked me. I actually got recruited to another company. I was a recruiter for a while with Hobson Associates. Did that for 5 years in technology, and I loved that. It was fun doing that type of work and helping people find jobs. In what was a okay market, and still have a lot of family and friends there, so to speak. Then Roman was born, and I said, okay. And if you looked at my LinkedIn profile, you'd be like, what is this? Stay-at-home dad. And for anybody that's a parent, they'll appreciate this. So I was a stay-at-home dad for 2 years. So I left Hobson Associates, and ironically, it just happened to be at the time of 9/11. And so, no, it wasn't it wasn't 9/11, because that's when my brother's son was born. It was after 9/11. It was it was one of the first depressions, the first downturns. Yeah, it was 2010. So, and I said, well, it's no big deal. I'll take 2 years off. I just got my MBA, and then I'll come back into the market. I mean, and who knew that the market would be as bad as it was? Now, it's since come back, but there was lessons learned in that. But I could not, at that time, find a job. So this is now 2010, 11, 12. And I was blessed because a friend of mine said, yo, Steve, I got this job I need you to come do. And I was like, all right, what's up? He said, it's with a place called My People Clinical Services, and I want you to help me with these kids, these kids that are recently out of incarceration, between 16 and 18, and help them get back on their feet, because you were a recruiter, right? And you got your MBA and these degrees. And I was like, I love my kid. I don't know about taking care of somebody else's kids. Yeah, I was like, I don't know. And he said, well, look, just do the operations piece, because, I know you got the people piece a little bit inside of you. So, and I was like, all right, dude. At that time, yeah, I did need a job, but another blessing, another life lesson, in that I got to see kids, and this is kids from all across the race and the culture spectrum: white, black, Puerto Rican, Chinese kids. I ran a supportive housing unit in Hartford, and so I had between 6 and 8 kids that I had to watch 24 hours a day and help them get back on their feet. And I'll tell you, the lessons learned in that is that, everyone doesn't come up the same way that you do. Doesn't have the same advantages that you might have had. Even if you think you got it bad, there's someone else that always has it out there a little rougher. And one of the things that showed that to me, and it's in my head for life, will be I was working with a young man, and it was during the summer. He was in my office, and they were doing their thing and blah blah blah. I said, "Come on, take a seat." He said, "Man, it's hot in here," and I don't know, my air conditioner might not have been working, but anyway, he goes and takes off his shirt, and he puts the shirt on the chair, and I'm like, "What are all these marks on his back?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, man, and we had some trust built up at this point." And he said, "Yeah, my mom, she used to put out her cigarettes on me," and I couldn't fathom that. Right? I mean, here I am going from Philadelphia to Penn State to visiting all these states and moving up the chain and making a little bit of money, and I was just blown away. And it was at that time that I realized really quick that I could not let these young men, because that's what I was working at the time, these young men fail. Like, yes, they had a rough life, but I also saw the good in them, and so when I would have them go to schools or jobs, I would talk to the managers and all those types of things, but I made sure they were dressed. I I started to bring in certain things for programming. I bought them, their first suit, showed them how to tie a tie, how to button a shirt, all those things. And it wasn't for me. It was all about them and saying, hey, you can do this. I know your story, right? But, you don't have to be so hard that everybody needs to learn your story because, there's evil out there in the world. And I just want somebody to give you an opportunity. And so being blessed with that, like I said in the beginning, I love my son, but all these other kids, but I ended up caring so deeply about them and their well-being that it was the right place at the right time. And, and during all of that, it's funny because, there were other things that I was trying to do in the community. And one of those was the Hartford Step Off Classic. And that was huge because being from Philadelphia, there was, things that just went on in Philly, as I kind of alluded to, that you just knew. You knew during the summer, everybody hears Fresh Prince, summertime, and the line, the place called the Plateau is where everybody goes. And that's true. It's a huge park in West Philadelphia, and everybody goes there. You're out of school, you go there. The cookouts, all that. And what also happens during that time is a step show, and that usually is for, college students that are involved in a fraternity or a sorority. It's just a huge cultural event. And so that happened every year in Philadelphia. So now I'm out here in Connecticut.
Stephen, for those members of our audience that are not familiar with the step show, tell them a little bit about what it is.
So the step show to kind of, so River Dance. Remember that hot thing? River Dance. Everybody came out and tap, 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 and it was either in a line dance or whatever else. So it's like that. Only the majority of people that are doing it aren't white. It's black. So when I put it in that perspective, when I tell people, even when I had to introduce it, they're like, "What is that?" When I was trying to get money for it, and I said, "No, well, what it comes down to is it's a cultural, not even a cultural phenomena, but it was at that time an event in which, again, fraternities and sororities participated in, where it was syncopated steps to a beat, but with messages. We would kind of taunt each other, if you will, in a loving way, and it was just a huge competition. But what was another life lesson that I learned is, and I should probably take a step back and say that the reason why I even thought of it to bring it up here was because, I had a little bit of money in my pocket, but I didn't know how to manage it. And so I was joining my fraternity up here, and I was broke. And I said, how can I make some money up here, so I can bring my dues down? And I remembered in college, and for, people that are in college, and you have your parties, and you do that stuff to raise money. And I said, why can't we do that just because we're adults? We could still have a function out here. And I had a couple of people that bought into it. One of them was one of the guys who was the head of the Department of Children and Families, and who was also with the Connecticut Health Foundation at the time. And he said, Stephen, we're always looking for activities that we can donate money to. Grants. I had no idea what a grant was. I was like, okay. And so the Connecticut Health Foundation gave me $5,000 to put this event together. And I did it, and it was over at the University of Hartford, because I said I had to have it at a college, so kids would show up. And I think I charged like $5 a ticket. And it was awesome. But I had a mentor that kind of slapped me around a little bit. And he said, look, if you really want to do something in this community, you got to advertise it. Now, I have a marketing background, so I was like, I know how to advertise. And he said, yeah, but Connecticut's different. And I was like, all right. And so he said, you need to put something in this to get corporations involved. And that's when I came up with the Health Expo. And so the Health Expo was something that ran all day along with the step show. And then the competition for the step show would begin. But it allowed people, especially for people of color, that would come out I learned that a lot did not go to the doctor, didn't go to the dentist, so on and so forth, not because necessarily they didn't want to, but because they couldn't afford it. And so I said, wait a minute, if I can get like the Aetnas of the world and so on and so forth to come in, then maybe they'll bring, their doctors, not a couple of doctor friends in the fraternity. And I said, would you mind helping me out with this? Next thing you know, as the event started to grow, because I think I did it for like 6 or 7 years, eventually, and only by the grace of God, the Bushnell reached out to me. And they said, would you mind bringing your event here? And I said, okay. And we did it on a Saturday. And we had, I think the sellout for the Bushnell was between 5,000 and 7,000. And we sold it out for like 4 years in a row. And it became so big by the grace of God that I started to get calls from breast cancer places and so on and so forth. They would bring out a bus and do all the screenings and stuff. I mean, it was just a huge community event, and I'm so thankful. I mean, at the time, I wasn't thankful. Like I said, I got smacked around by my mentor a lot, but he helped me realize that dream. And then life happens. You take a couple of shifts, and next thing you know, several years later or so, I meet Chip and in my new job as sales with other designs and in the print business and helping people, ironically, market their business through print media. And yeah, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it.
Well, I love throughout the entire time that you've been talking, you used the word lessons a lot.
Yep.
And I love that because obviously, especially early on, you showed initiative. You were all about getting things done, but you realized that in every situation, there's always more to learn.
Yes, without a doubt. If somebody always knows more than you, it doesn't matter who you are. Somebody has, but more specifically, you don't want to make the same mistakes that somebody else did. And so if you're willing to listen, and honestly, if you show yourself not just presentable, but approachable, it's probably a better word, approachable. Somebody could talk to you and say, hey, as you suggested, hey, I see some initiative in you. You know what? Let me show you something. Let me show you some things that I've learned, or show you how to do this, because you do it well. But let me show you how to do it better so that you don't make the same mistakes that I did, and so on and so forth. And once you move yourself out of the way, your ego, I know what I'm doing, then, I mean, you just learn so much more, almost, exponentially. And so, yeah, there were definitely a lot of lessons, to be sure.
Yeah, you obviously, what you're mentioning is you have to be really, really open to every single present moment experience that you're in. And I mean, you are so into doing what you're doing. And obviously, the biggest lesson that you learned up front that you were talking about is taking care of people. And
Yes.
some people really have to learn that, because some people just think I'm just going to do my job, get my check at the end of the week, and so on and so forth. But obviously, I mean, the first time that we all met you, we see how much you care for people, how much fun you are, and so on and so forth. But I mean, it all comes from within, and I mean, it's something that you appreciate in yourself and that you appreciate in other people, and it's just amazing what you're doing with this. Obviously, you're inspirational to all of us, and it's not just because you're a fun guy to be around, and from what I hear, a really wonderful singer. But I mean, that's you. And the bottom line is, this world is a whole lot of people just throwing out everything that differs us from each other, but just being in the present moment and enjoying and helping out people the best we can. And there's a lot of that going on these days that wasn't going on before. I mean, I'm getting kind of old and I'm watching this, and that's one of the beautiful things that I see in what's happening right now, is that people are really becoming aware of what the situations are, obviously with the pandemic and with the racial injustice and so on, and throwing out our petty little differences and realizing that here we are. And you're a father of young kids, and I think that there's a bright light in the future, because they don't have the baggage that people my age have or the generation afterwards and so on and so forth, and they see each other for a whole lot more of a unified human race as opposed to all the picky little things that I was brought up with. So God bless
Right.
you. Oh, cool.
No, you know what? You're absolutely right. But I think, also something that I learned early on in my careers was that, be cool with everybody. Like, let them show you who they are, right? And as long as you're cool with everyone, you never know who someone else is. And by that, I mean, you could be talking to, this guy and maybe he's humble or whatever, and you befriend them, or girl, whatever. You befriend them and everything is cool, and you just treat them with the same respect you want to be treated with. Next thing you know, you find out that he's or she's, I don't know, Steve Jobs' long lost child, and they got billions in the bank, and they're looking for somebody to run their chief marketing officer. Hey, well, Steve's gone, but hey, Dad, there's this guy, Stephen King, and I saw him at a networking event. He's pretty cool. I think he could do it. You never know. But if you treat everybody like you're better than them, or you're just not friendly to be around, you don't have a smile on your face, whatever it might be, act as if everything in your world is going awesome, because you never know who might come with that opportunity or that situation or that I'm in sales, and sometimes it's rough. I mean, when this pandemic hit, it's like what's nobody knew what was happening, but people remember, and they say, yo, that guy was pretty nice, during the pandemic. He still came out to see me. He still said hello, so on and so forth. So then when things start back up again, yeah, who do we want to do our business with? You remember, and that's not necessarily a strategy or anything, but it's just being who you want to be treated like, and I think sometimes that is, you say your generation, but even with mine, sometimes that's missing. People get caught up in their success or whatever, and they forget where they come from. And it's like, you just never know what could happen tomorrow. And as long as you are willing to help someone out today, you never know how that might benefit you or someone else. People, what's the thing? Pay it forward or whatever. But that was one of those other things that I think, even in the circles that the three of us are around, we look out for each other, help each other out, knowing that, even if it doesn't, quote unquote, come back around, you still feel good about it, and then that way, when things do get tough, people remember.
Yeah, I love that you said you never know, because you've had a couple of examples in there so far. You never, you didn't know what the kid had gone through when he took off his shirt. You never know
Right.
who somebody is going to be connected to. Unless you actually get to know the person as an individual, you don't know their story. You don't know what they've gone through or what they can offer or anything,
Right.
without relating to them as a person.
Right. And that's how you really are shown who you are. I mean, there's been plenty of times where I've been told, even in other positions, I was a soccer coach out here in South Windsor, and I remember somebody, oh, you got to watch these kids because they're trouble. And and even I don't want to hear that. Let me do what I do, and let me make that decision, because I think that's what happens too much, is that people talk, and then that individual, and you don't know their situation. That individual is not able to prove themselves to you. Maybe they've changed. Maybe something happened in their life, whatever. But if you just accept that person for who they are now, if they prove themselves to you, then there you go. But,
Exactly. All right, we're just about at the end of our time. So, Chip, what do you think is the big takeaway from Steve's story?
Oh, wow. There's so much here. I mean, you know how I'm in the quotes and stuff like that, and you're never going to guess who said this, and maybe you won't even recognize it. But Optimism, I think, is one thing that describes our friend Steven here, especially being, you say be cool. Basically, being cool is just being in the moment, listening and learning and helping out as much as you can. This is a quote: optimism is a happiness magnet. If you stay positive, good things and good people will be drawn to you. That was written by a gymnast from about 20, 30 years ago named Mary Lou Retton, who you've never seen
Yes.
picture not smiling. And I mean, the bottom line is meet people where they are in the present moment, which is what you've done. And the bottom line is that throws out all of the judgments and everything else and just enjoying the moment. And you never know what you're going to draw out of these people, and they're going to remember you forever, and they're going to be better for it. It's contagious. So keep it up, Steven. It's great to have you here.
That's it.
Oh, I appreciate it.
Yeah, I think for me, the big takeaway that people need to listen to is that Steve is somebody who always looked at people he was with, the situations he was in, and looked at, what he could learn from it, how he could better himself, and how he could better others around him. And I mean, that's so big because that's really the key to success.
It is. And I appreciate you recognizing that. It is all the time. I don't believe, and I won't go on, but I don't believe that there's anything worse than having a boss or a manager or an owner who knows everything. They think that the key to their success is just them. But at the end of the day, you're there 24/7. You're not teaching your people anything. When you go, if you happen to pass on, everything goes with you. But if you teach others, they're going to make your business stronger because they're going to feel a part of what's going on. And they're going to tell everybody else about it because it's going to be their business just as much as it is yours. And then you know what happens? You don't have to show up at work half as much because you empowered somebody else to do it. And that's what I like to, try and do and stuff that I've learned is that, if you empower people and just trust them and give them the opportunity to do well and at the same time make some mistakes but teach them, man, it makes life go by so much easier. So much easier.
Absolutely. And I know there's so much more we could talk about, but we're out of time. So Steve, I do hope you'll come back and do another episode with us because there's so much we didn't even get to.
Yeah, I thought about that. I'm so sorry. I went on and I just kind of.
Fantastic.
Man, I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you so much, Chip. Thank you so much, Eric.
All right. You've been listening to the Success Showcase. You can catch us every week at xvadio.com/podcasts. You can also find us on the Apple Podcasts app, Google Play, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Stitcher, and wherever you find podcasts. Remember, make this your best week ever and make next week even better. See you then.